Welcome back. We are joined today again by Seyed Mohammad Marandi, a professor at Tehran University and also a former advisor to Iran's nuclear negotiation team. So thank you for taking the time. I see some very disturbing pictures coming out of Tehran in terms of the attacks on the city center. So yeah, you must be exhausted. So I appreciate taking the time. Um,
Thank you very much for having me, Glenn. Yes, they've carried out airstrikes, and um, I heard from one of my friends that their home was badly damaged, and so they are striking civilian targets.
Well, this is the second day of the war, though. We spoke yesterday in the morning before it was clear the extent to which the Americans were involved, and but now, of course, we have much more information available after this been going on for more than 24 hours. But what do we know so far, though, in terms of what has been targeted in Iran and also how Iran is retaliating?
Well, the assassinations, except for the leader and the generals that were martyred, the other assassinations were not effective. And as you've seen, the Iranian response has been immediate and it's been sustained. So we've had missile strikes, drone strikes against the Israeli regime, but also against U.S. assets and targets and military compounds, but more than just military compounds. Wherever the U.S. has assets, they are also targeted. I think the focus has been on the Emirates and Bahrain more than anywhere else. So this continues. And in addition to that, my understanding is that the Iranians have been mostly using older weapons, older drones, older missiles, and the new generation missiles, excuse me, and the new generation missiles have either been uh, very rarely used or they haven't been used in many cases. So what they're doing is that they're trying to empty the air defense capabilities, whether in the Persian Gulf or in the Israeli regime, and then I assume they're going to go for the newer weapons. The Iranians also carried out an airstrike or a series of airstrikes with their air force, which this is an interesting event, and I think that angered the Americans, and so they carried out a series of airstrikes today. A lot of people on the streets in Tehran. It's spontaneous. I haven't been myself, but people who have say it's just people who've gathered themselves um and they're in mourning but that's basically it.
Well, we've seen a lot of attacks, well, as Iran retaliates against American targets in the region. We've seen attacks on the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan. I wasn't sure if Saudi Arabia had any strikes, but also Oman because they have a port facility which is used by the U.S. military. But many people are surprised by the extent of this. They shouldn't have been if they had listened to you, though, because you made it very clear that this is what Iran would do if it was attacked again. But do you see a strategy in this? What they're going for, given that the Gulf states are, I guess, targeted so much? Indeed, all Israel, of course, has also been attacked. But we haven't seen that much on attacks towards the US Navy, or maybe it's just me missing it.
Well, as you rightly pointed out, if the Trump regime had people who had any sense, they would have recognized that this would happen. And the surprise is something that should surprise us, though it doesn't because we're used to their ignorance. I think there's going to be further escalation probably down the road if the United States and the Israeli regime continue down this path. The Iranians obviously are striking, but they're not striking with their full capabilities, but the tempo can increase very easily and rapidly. As I explained before, Iran's underground capabilities are not something that the Americans can destroy. And those underground capabilities that are directed towards the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean are far more extensive and far more potentially destructive than the underground missile bases that are directed towards the Israeli regime. Because these bases have been created, or they've been building them since Iraq was invaded. So the Iranians have been preparing themselves for a potential U.S. attack or aggression or invasion since roughly 2003, if not earlier. But after 2003, they began really focusing on underground facilities, drone technology, and missile technology. So right now, the Iranians are basically harming the Americans, and they are also harming these Arab regimes because the markets there are going to be badly affected and probably permanently. I recall, and I'm sure you'll recall, that before Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, Kuwait was the jewel of the Persian Gulf when it came to wealth and that sort of thing. But after he invaded, even though uh, his forces were pushed back, and even though Kuwait received all sorts of compensation from Iraq under Saddam Hussein, um, it never recovered. And the economic power tilted to the south of the Persian Gulf region. And I don't think that the Emirates or Qatar or Bahrain will ever really recover from what happened, because what happened basically shows how vulnerable they are. And if this continues, obviously this is going to get much worse for them. If the war is expanded, then the situation is going to get even worse. So um, they are not. There is talk that the Saudis and the Emiratis may launch some sort of attack on Iran, which I think would be utterly foolish, because then Iran will have an excuse to hit them very, very hard. And they are very vulnerable. They're not strong powers. The Emiratis only have a passport holding population of 1.4 million, and Saudi Arabia couldn't defeat Yemen. And of course, if Saudi confronts Iran, then they could expect Yemen to open up a front against them as well. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But in any case, the point is that Iran can do a lot more than what it's doing right now. Iran is planning for a long-term war, and but we are seeing a pretty impressive wave after wave after wave of missile and drone attacks taking place.